You've been told to control your future, shape your destiny, master your environment, but no one told you the truth. A real battlefield is inside your mind, and it always has been. Most people spend their whole life trying to fix the world without realizing they've never learned how to master their own response to it. What if control was never about what's out there, but what's within? You're tired not from doing too much, but from holding too tightly. What if peace doesn't come from gripping harder, but from finally letting go of what was never yours to hold? Most of what weighs you down, most of what steals your peace, isn't actually yours to control. It's someone else's judgment, someone else's error, a past you can't change, or a future that hasn't even arrived. But here's the quiet truth most people never hear. The more attention you give to the external world, its chaos, its noise, its drama, the more power you surrender over your own internal world. And in the end, it's rarely the noise outside that truly destroys you. It's the noise you allow to echo inside the inner turmoil you never learned to quiet. This is where Stoicism begins, where the illusion of control ends, not the kind of control that leads to intentional action, but the toxic kind that drains your energy as you try to manipulate the uncontrollable. Because no one really tells you this, but peace isn't found in micromanaging everything around you. Peace begins the moment you realize what is truly yours and what never was. That's the foundation of real strength, not in dominating life, but in learning to respond to it with discipline, humility, and clarity. Not by fleeing chaos, but by training your mind to stand unshaken in the middle of it. This isn't about controlling the world. It's about learning to command the only place you've ever truly had influence, yourself. Let's start with this simple idea: your peace begins where your obsession with control ends. There's something fundamentally human about trying to control life. You see it in children who cry when they want something to go their way. It starts as emotion-driven demands, loud, reactive, visible. But as we grow, that urge to control doesn't go away. It simply becomes more subtle, more refined. Now, we try to control how others see us. We rehearse conversations in our minds. We obsess over the perfect timing. We manipulate outcomes with good intentions. We try to force success, force love, force peace, as if these deep, spiritual experiences can be manufactured by willpower alone. But the truth is, the tighter we try to grip life, the more it slips through our fingers. The Stoics figured this out long before modern psychology confirmed it. Epictetus said, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will." Pause and read that again, not like a quote, but like a prescription. It's not poetic, it's practical. It's a mental detox. When you chase what's outside your influence, you give up the peace that's already available to you. Peace isn't something that arrives when life finally matches your expectations. It comes when you stop demanding that it must. Imagine this. You're in traffic. You're late. The clock is ticking. Your heart is racing. You grip the wheel tighter. You curse the drivers. You clench your jaw. And none of that moves a single car. All it does is flood your system with stress. But now imagine this instead. You breathe. You release. You whisper to yourself, "This is outside my control." But my reaction isn't. And in that exact moment, you reclaim something most people never even realize they've lost: your inner authority. You didn't control the situation, but you mastered your response. And that's real power. Let's go even deeper. Control isn't only about what happens to you. It's about how you interpret what happens. The Stoics taught that it's not events that disturb us, it's our judgments about those events. Someone ignores your message, you think, "They must be upset with me." A plan fails, you conclude, "I'm a failure." But what if none of those stories are true? What if your pain isn't coming from the reality, but from the narrative you've attached to it? This is why letting go isn't a weakness, it's a mental discipline. It's the ability to stop depending on things that were never designed to stay still. The weather will change, people will leave, markets will rise and crash, life will constantly twist and turn. But your breath, your thoughts, your principles, those are your anchors. And if you know how to hold the wheel, you don't need to control the storm. One of the most exhausting mental traps is this: if I just try harder, I'll finally get control. If I explain better, they'll understand. If I give more, they'll stay. If I worry enough, I'll prevent the worst. But almost none of that is true. You don't control how someone else feels. You don't control whether they stay or go. You don't control how the future unfolds. And here's the most beautiful truth of all: you don't have to. You only need to fully own what is actually yours: your attention, your choices, your responses, your values. That's your real leverage. That's the soil where confidence grows. And once you begin to operate from this mindset, everything changes. Life stops feeling like a constant war you're losing. It becomes a rhythm, a dance. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you let go. But in that rhythm, peace finds you. So how do you train your mind to live this way? It begins with awareness. Start by noticing when tension arises. Every time your body tightens, your chest, your jaw, your shoulders, pause and ask yourself, what am I trying to control right now? Is it a person's opinion, an outcome you fear, a conversation from last week? If the answer isn't something you directly own, pause, breathe, release it. Not because you're indifferent, but because it's not yours to carry. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom in action. You don't bend the world to your will to find peace. You align your will with reality, and peace emerges like breath after suffocation. When you do this daily, moment by moment, you become something rare. Even in the middle of uncertainty, even when the world is loud, you remain centered. Not because life is easy, but because you finally know where your responsibility ends and where your power begins. Control is internal, not external. That may sound simple, even obvious, but how often do we actually live like we believe it? It's so easy to fall into the illusion that control means managing the world around us. Timelines, people, outcomes, even the weather. We think if we just try hard enough, organize well enough, plan thoroughly enough, everything will fall into place. But life has its own plan. People change their minds, circumstances shift, the unexpected arrives, and in the middle of it all, our attempts to hold the external together often leave us falling apart internally. But there's a different kind of control, a quieter, more resilient kind. Internal control. This is the bedrock of Stoicism. It's not about ruling over the world. It's about ruling over yourself. A Stoic doesn't chase control over others. He sharpens his awareness of what lies within his grasp, his thoughts, his perceptions, his values, his reactions. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the shift. Control doesn't mean getting everything to go your way. It means responding wisely when it doesn't. But most people are taught the opposite. From a young age, we're conditioned to obsess over results. We're told to fix every problem, to avoid every mistake, to anticipate every possibility. And so, we try to make people like us. We replay conversations over and over. We lose sleep over things we cannot undo. We confuse control with safety. We think if we manage every detail, we'll finally feel calm. But what actually happens is that we become slaves to uncertainty. We pour all our energy into controlling variables we were never meant to command. Here's the truth that doesn't come with applause. Internal control is invisible. You don't get praise for staying silent in the heat of an argument. No one celebrates the moment you breathe instead of breaking down. The world won't clap when you let go of what you can't change. But those invisible victories, they're everything. They build the kind of strength that doesn't collapse when things go wrong. The kind of maturity that doesn't seek validation for doing the right thing quietly. That's a power the world can't take away. Imagine someone insults you. Your ego wants to rise, to lash out, to defend. But in that moment, you pause. You choose not to engage. You walk away not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to rise above the bait. That's real control, not over them, over you. And this applies far beyond emotional restraint. It's also about your focus, your energy, your mental presence. Every day, you decide where to place your attention. And where your attention goes, your energy flows. If you constantly pour it into distractions, complaints, the news, social media, gossip, problems you can't solve, you begin to feel depleted. Not because life is too much, but because you're leaking energy into things that don't nourish you. The Stoic mind becomes a filter. Is this mine to act on or mine to release? That simple distinction is everything. You begin to move with grace, not desperation. You respond, not react. You choose with care. You protect your peace like it's sacred because it is. When you stop trying to control the world, you gain a surprising reward. You become free, not detached, not indifferent, just free from the lie that you must have control to feel safe. There's a quiet confidence that comes from this mindset. You no longer feel compelled to fix every misunderstanding. You stop needing to be understood by everyone. You stop managing other people's emotions like it's your job. You show up as you are. You hold your ground. You set your boundaries. You let go of outcomes. And you trust that the most powerful thing you can do is lead yourself with intention. That's not passivity. That's wisdom. But of course, this takes practice. The world is full of triggers, tests, temptations. You'll be challenged every day. That's why building inner control isn't a what-time choice, it's a discipline. It's a skill. And it starts with a question. Every time you feel overwhelmed, ask, what part of this is within my control? And if the answer is your reaction, then that's where your energy should go. Let's look at a practical scenario. A project you worked hard on falls apart. Your effort wasn't appreciated. A part of you wants to spiral into frustration or blame. But the Stoic in you pauses and says, I can't control their opinion. I can't control the outcome. But I can control the integrity I brought. I can choose to carry this moment with grace instead of bitterness. And you move on lighter, calmer, stronger. Or let's say someone ghosts you. They vanish without explanation. You feel rejected, disrespected. But again, you pause. I don't control their choices, but I control how I treat myself. I control my boundaries. I control my worth. I release the weight of their silence and walk forward with dignity. Each of these moments becomes a small act of liberation, because when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you stop handing your power to what doesn't deserve it. But this kind of emotional strength doesn't grow on its own. It requires mental conditioning. It requires honesty. It requires space. You must carve out time each day, even just a few minutes, to reflect, to ask yourself, where am I wasting my energy today? What am I holding onto that I was never meant to carry? Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is to let go, not out of apathy, but out of clarity. Here's another truth. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. You don't have to explain yourself to people committed to misinterpreting you. You're allowed to preserve your energy. You're allowed to walk away. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Let that be your filter. And the more you train yourself to respond instead of react, to stay grounded instead of grasping, the more grounded your presence becomes. People feel it. And more importantly, you feel it. You'll stop being rattled by things that used to shake you. You'll stop chasing validation. You'll stop living in reaction to everyone else's chaos. And here's the greatest reward. You begin to trust yourself deeply. You no longer fear the unexpected because you know that whatever comes, you'll meet it with clarity, with strength, with wisdom. So practice this today. When something frustrates you, pause. Ask yourself the question, is this within my control? If it is, act with calm precision. If it's not, let it go with grace. Because every time you do, you reinforce the most powerful truth there is. You don't need to control everything around you. To feel in control, you only need to master the one thing. You were always meant to govern yourself every day without realizing it. You give away small pieces of your energy not through physical effort, but through mental friction. You lose it in old arguments that replay in your mind, in imagined future disasters that haven't happened, in worrying about someone else's opinion, or trying to change how they feel about you. You pour it into things you can't fix, people you can't reach, outcomes you can't control. And by the end of the day, you're exhausted. Not because you did too much, but because you carried too much. This kind of exhaustion has nothing to do with your body and everything to do with your mind. The Stoics understood something we often forget. Your energy is sacred, not in a vague, spiritual way, but in a concrete, practical sense. Where you place your mental attention shapes how you feel, what you accomplish, and who you become. So the question becomes, how much of your energy are you spending on what isn't yours? The answer, for most of us, is too much. You worry about how someone will interpret your message. You overthink why they haven't replied. You ruminate over a conversation from 3 days ago. You try to protect someone from consequences they need to face on their own. You take emotional responsibility for other people's happiness. We tell ourselves it's compassion, or empathy, or being a good person. But often, it's something else, a hidden belief that if we control enough, care enough, give enough, we can prevent pain. But here's the paradox. When you constantly pour your energy into fixing what isn't yours, you don't just lose time, you lose yourself. Over time, the anxiety, the guilt, the second-guessing becomes your new normal. You feel heavy not because life is overwhelming, but because you're carrying things you were never meant to hold. Reclaiming your energy is not selfish. It's the most responsible thing you can do. Because when you protect your internal space, you actually show up stronger for yourself and for others. So what does it look like to reclaim your energy? It starts with awareness. Begin to notice when your thoughts drift into territory that isn't yours. When you're replaying someone's words for the 5th time. When you're trying to predict how they'll respond. When you're imagining a disaster that hasn't happened. When you're holding onto resentment like it's a duty. Then ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this mine to solve, or mine to let go? Take a simple situation. Let's say someone was rude to you today. You can spend the next 6 hours thinking about it, how unfair it was, what you should have said, what you wish you'd done differently. Or you can acknowledge it, set a mental boundary, and move on. One of those options drains you. The other restores you. This doesn't mean pretending things don't matter. It means not letting them control your emotional world long after they've passed. Or think about how often we waste energy on the future. The what ifs. The what could go wrongs. The what if I fail? What if they never call? What if I'm not enough? We often mistake worry for preparation. But worry doesn't prepare you. It paralyzes you. It's like rehearsing pain for a scene that may never come. The Stoic way is different. Do what you can. Prepare with reason. Then let it go. You don't beat the unknown by obsessing. You beat it by choosing presence. And this doesn't apply only to our personal lives. It applies to how we absorb the world. If you let the news, the internet, or social media flood your mind 24/7, you will lose yourself in a sea of noise. Your emotions will be hijacked by headlines. Your mood will be shaped by opinions that aren't even your own. Your mind will be pulled in every direction but inward, and you won't know why you feel so anxious, scattered, on edge. This is why protecting your energy means filtering your input, not ignoring reality, but choosing your exposure. You can stay informed without being consumed. You can care about the world without letting it rob you of your peace. Reclaiming energy looks like this in real life. Choosing not to engage in every argument. Saying no to draining conversations. Limiting your exposure to negativity. Walking away from emotional chaos. Turning off the noise and tuning into your breath. It's not about isolation. It's about discernment. Think of your mind like a home. You wouldn't leave the front door open to every passerby. So why do you leave it open to every thought, every fear, every opinion? This kind of self-regulation takes discipline. It requires honesty. It means looking at your patterns and saying, no more. No more overthinking things you can't change. No more trying to earn approval from people who aren't even paying attention. No more letting the day be hijacked by distractions that don't align with your goals. That's not cold, that's clarity. And clarity is power. When you stop giving your energy to what drains you, you suddenly have more to give to what matters. You become sharper, more present, more peaceful, and you begin to realize something profound. Most of the heaviness you've been carrying wasn't yours in the first place. So take it back. Take back your energy from old stories, from people who misunderstand you, from future scenarios that haven't happened, from past moments that can't be fixed, from opinions that don't align with your values. Use that energy to nourish what is yours: your discipline, your creativity, your peace, your growth. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world, just your corner of it. And when you focus your strength where it actually counts, your thoughts, your actions, your attitude, something beautiful happens. You no longer feel like a victim of life. You become a participant in it, not trying to control everything, just choosing what deserves your light. One of the most exhausting and deceptive habits we fall into is the illusion that we can change people, that if we say the right words, behave the right way, show enough love, kindness, or patience, they'll finally understand. They'll respect us more. They'll change their behavior. They'll give us the closure, love, or validation we crave. But this illusion is a trap, a silent, draining trap, because no matter how thoughtful, generous, or composed you are, you cannot control another person's mind, feelings, or actions. Trying to do so even with good intentions isn't connection. It's a disguised form of control, and that's where suffering begins. The Stoics taught that to live in harmony with nature is to accept things and people as they are, not as we wish them to be. That doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment or staying silent when you should speak. It doesn't mean allowing disrespect or betraying your own boundaries. It simply means dropping the exhausting effort of trying to bend someone into who you need them to be. You stop pushing. You stop waiting. You stop molding yourself into a version that might finally earn their approval, because you finally realize you're not responsible for changing them. You're only responsible for being true to yourself. Let's sit with that for a moment. How much of your energy is spent adjusting for someone who doesn't see you? How many times have you hoped that if you just did a little more they'd finally get it, That's not growth, that's emotional servitude. And in that process, you don't just lose your energy, you lose your clarity, you lose your voice, you lose yourself. True strength, true freedom, begins when you stop trying to manage someone else's evolution. You can support someone, yes, you can encourage their growth, you can model love and honesty and patience, but you cannot change someone who doesn't want to change. You cannot force someone to understand you if they aren't willing to listen. You cannot heal someone who clings to their wounds like a shield. At some point, you must ask yourself, am I still showing love, or am I chasing their permission to feel worthy? Because here's what happens when you stop trying to control others. You start reclaiming the energy you've been leaking into the impossible. You become whole again. Letting go of this illusion doesn't mean closing your heart. It means opening your eyes. It means seeing that influence is not the same as power. You might inspire someone, you might plant a seed, but the moment you attach your peace to their transformation, you've stepped out of wisdom and into fear. And fear always asks the wrong questions. Why don't they see me? What more can I do? What's wrong with me? But clarity, Stoic clarity, asks better ones. What's mine to control here? What would integrity look like in this moment? What do I need to stop carrying that was never mine? Letting go, then, becomes a spiritual discipline. It looks like no longer begging for apologies you'll never get. It looks like no longer rehearsing conversations that won't change the outcome. It looks like no longer shrinking yourself to avoid discomfort in others. It looks like walking away not to punish but to preserve your peace. And it looks like honoring your boundaries, not because you're angry, but because you finally understand your energy is too valuable to waste. So what does this look like in your day-to-day? It's choosing not to send the message you know won't be received. It's choosing silence when someone only listens to reply, not understand. It's no longer contorting yourself to be palatable, no longer waiting for someone's change of heart to validate your worth. And most of all, it's understanding that peace isn't found in controlling others. It's found in letting go of the need to. The Stoic doesn't chase validation. He doesn't beg for closure. He doesn't lose himself trying to gain someone else's approval. He lives with integrity and lets the world respond however it chooses. That's not detachment. That's mastery. Because there's a deep, grounded kind of power that comes from no longer needing to be understood by everyone, from no longer negotiating your truth in exchange for belonging. That power is quiet, but unshakable. It lets you walk away from conversations that go nowhere. It lets you stand still while others demand a reaction. It lets you release people, not out of spite but out of love. Love for yourself, love for your path, love for what's true. And when you finally step away from the burden of changing others, something remarkable happens. You return to yourself. You begin to hear your own voice again. You stop arguing with reality. You stop bending under expectations that were never yours to hold. You see things clearly. You breathe easier. You feel lighter. And that's when you know you never needed to control them. You only needed to free yourself. So today, ask yourself, who am I still trying to change? Who am I adjusting for? Whose behavior am I obsessing over? And what would it look like to simply let go, not in anger, not in cold withdrawal, but in the kind of love that trusts your energy deserves better, that your peace is more important than someone else's opinion, that your worth is not dependent on their reaction. Because here's the truth, the only thing more draining than trying to change someone is realizing you never had to. Most suffering doesn't begin with what is. It begins with what we wish it was instead. It's not the event that hurts, it's our resistance to the event. It's not the loss that crushes us, it's our refusal to accept that the loss happened. We cling to how it should have gone. We fixate on what could have been, We fight reality like it's an enemy. But here's the Stoic truth. Reality doesn't care what you expected. It's not personal. It's just real. And when you fight what's real, you suffer. Acceptance, then, is not weakness. It's not giving up. It's not rolling over. It's the first step toward strength. Because you cannot change what you won't face. You cannot grow beyond what you continue to deny. Acceptance says, this happened. I don't like it. I didn't choose it. But it is what it is. Now, what will I do with it? That's not surrender. That's power. That's maturity. Epictetus wrote, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. That's not passive. That's discipline. That's what a wise life looks like. You fix what can be fixed, you release what cannot, and you stop trying to live inside an alternate version of reality. But let's be honest, this is hard, especially when pain is involved, especially when expectations were high, when love was real, when effort was sincere, when the loss cuts deep. It feels wrong to accept something we never asked for. We think, if I accept it, does that mean I'm okay with it? Does that mean it didn't matter? Does that mean I'm weak? The answer is no. Acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It means you're done trying to rewrite it. It means you're done giving away your present to a past that can't be edited. It's a shift from resistance to clarity, from struggle to movement. Imagine this. You lose a job you love, or a relationship ends, or a long-planned dream falls apart. Your heart breaks. Your plans unravel. You have two choices. The first is to resist, to replay every detail, to argue with reality. In your head, to hold on to what should have been like a lifeline. The second choice, acceptance, to say, this is real. I didn't want this, but it's here. And now I choose how to meet it. That shift, that single mental pivot changes everything. Because resistance doesn't give you power. It gives you paralysis. But acceptance gives you options. It gives you motion. It gives you yourself back. And this principle doesn't just apply to big life events. It applies to the small, daily moments too. The rude stranger, the long delay, the canceled plans, the traffic jam, the awkward silence, the weather, the tech failure, the forgotten text. Every one of these moments gives you a fork in the road. Resist or accept, react or respond, tighten or release. The more often you choose acceptance, the more resilient you become. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop wasting strength on what cannot be undone. Think of a tree in the wind. A rigid tree snaps, but the one that bends survives. That's what acceptance is. It's psychological flexibility. It's emotional intelligence. It's spiritual endurance. And maybe the most difficult form of acceptance, the one most people avoid, is self-acceptance. Facing your own flaws, looking at your own contradictions, your insecurities, your failures, the parts of yourself you hide. But the Stoic doesn't flinch at the mirror. He uses it, not to shame himself, but to understand himself. He says, this is who I am today, and I take responsibility for who I become tomorrow. That's where growth begins. Not in pretending, not in guilt, in truth. So if you've been resisting something, an ending, a truth, a diagnosis, a change, you're not weak, you're human. But maybe it's time to stop the mental war. Maybe it's time to say, this is what it is, and now I'm ready to move forward, not with bitterness, but with a clear heart, a clear head, a clear path. Acceptance doesn't make you soft, it makes you sharp. Because once you're not distracted by what should be, you can finally focus on what can be. You become powerful not by forcing life to obey you, but by responding skillfully to what life presents. And make no mistake, there is power in that. Because Most people will spend their lives trying to undo the unchangeable. They'll carry resentment like armor. They'll argue with the past. They'll try to force reality to apologize. But that's not healing. That's being stuck. The Stoic way is different. It says, begin where you are. Begin with what's true. Begin now. So take a breath. Ask yourself, what have I been resisting? What am I still trying to rewrite? What pain have I been rehearsing instead of releasing? And what would happen if just for today you accepted it? Not because it was fair, not because it was easy, but because your peace matters more than your pride. Because your time is too precious to waste fighting what already is. You want strength? Then stop running from the truth. Start walking with it. In a world where everything screams for your attention, where you're bombarded by opinions, expectations, deadlines, and distractions, it's easy to forget one fundamental truth. The only things truly under your control are your thoughts and your actions. That's it. Not what people say, not how they feel, not what the future holds, not how the world responds. Just your thoughts and your actions. And while this might sound limiting, it's actually the opposite. It's liberating, because the moment you stop trying to command everything else, you free up your energy to master what's always been yours. This is the heartbeat of Stoic philosophy and also its greatest challenge, because the human mind doesn't like limitation. It craves certainty. It wants to predict, influence, shape, and secure everything it touches. And when it can't, it panics. It creates stories. It spirals into worry. It overthinks, overreacts, overextends. We believe that if we just think hard enough about a problem, we'll solve it. That if we dwell long enough on someone, they'll change. That if we keep anticipating every possible outcome, we'll somehow be prepared. But all of that thinking, it's noise, it's mental activity. Without authority. It's fear disguised as strategy. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He didn't say you have power over outcomes, over people, over the past, just your mind and what you do with it. Let that sink in, because this is where everything begins. Not in controlling your environment, but in commanding your internal environment. And make no mistake, controlling your thoughts doesn't mean suppressing them. It means directing them, guiding them with intention, training them like a muscle. When doubt creeps in, you don't argue with it. You observe it. You name it. You let it pass. When jealousy rises, you don't feed it. You reframe it. You turn it into admiration or motivation. When anger flares, you don't explode. You investigate. You ask, what belief is fueling this? What part of this is really about me? This is how you shift from being a passenger in your own mind to being the driver. And when it comes to your actions, the same principle applies. You can't control how people perceive you, but you can control the intention behind your words. You can't control whether your effort is rewarded, but you can show up with excellence anyway. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. Your standards, your principles, your behavior. That's your domain. And when you stay rooted in that domain, the storms around you lose their power. Not because they disappear, but because you are no longer at their mercy. This isn't just about philosophy. This is the foundation of emotional maturity. Because let's be honest, immature minds want to control others. They want to change external conditions before they've even examined their internal state. The Stoic flips this. The Stoic understands real freedom begins the moment you stop trying to rewrite the world and start mastering your response to it. So imagine this. Imagine going through an entire day where every time something upsets you, someone ignores you. A plan fails, a person disappoints you. Pause and ask, what part of this is mine to control? And if it's a thought, you shift it. If it's an action, you take it. And if it's neither, you let it go. That's not weakness, that's command. It's intentional living. It's choosing response over reaction. It's acting from clarity, not chaos. And here's where the next level of Stoicism shows up. If your thoughts and actions are yours to control, so is your responsibility. You're not a victim of your emotions. You're the author of them. And when you slip you don't beat yourself up. You realign. You don't spiral into shame. You ask, what belief led me here? What decision can I make now? That's how a Stoic navigates setbacks, with awareness, not self-punishment. This level of self-governance doesn't come overnight. It's a daily practice, it's a skill. And just like any skill, it requires failure, reflection, and repetition. But here's what it gives you in return: clarity, stability, trust in yourself. No, it won't make you immune to pain. You'll still feel loss. You'll still be disappointed. Life will still blindside you. But you'll have a compass inside. And that compass doesn't shake when the map falls apart. You'll be able to say, I don't know what's coming, but I know who I am in the face of it. And that is power. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, if your thoughts are scattered, your emotions are pulling you in every direction, come back to this core question. What do I control right now? If it's not your thought, let it pass. If it's not your action, let it go. If it is, own it, shape it, align it. Because the more you focus on what's yours, the more power you take back from what isn't. And when you make this a habit, moment by moment, decision by decision, you begin to notice something extraordinary. You don't need to control everything to be at peace with anything. You just need to control yourself. Chaos is inevitable. Life, by its very nature, is unpredictable. It doesn't ask for your permission before it changes course. Things break, people disappoint, plans unravel, moments you counted on vanish, and often, it all happens at once without warning. But here's the crucial Stoic insight. Chaos isn't the real problem. The way you filter that chaos is. You see, most people absorb life like a sponge. They soak up everything: the noise, the fear, the offense, the judgment. Every insult sticks. Every setback feels like a personal attack. Every inconvenience becomes a catastrophe. But the Stoic isn't a sponge. He is a filter. He allows life to flow through him, not into him. He discerns what to absorb and what to let pass. He holds on to what matters, and he releases the rest. And this filtering ability isn't cold or detached, it's born of clarity. It's the result of training the mind to pause, observe, and question before it reacts. Clarity asks, is this event truly as terrible as it feels? Or is it my interpretation of it that's creating the pain? That pause, that tiny space between the stimulus and your reaction, that is where wisdom grows. But in the modern world, that space is disappearing. We live in an age of reaction, of instant responses, of snap judgments, of hot takes. We respond before we understand. We comment before we reflect. We react before we even feel. The Stoic mind resists this speed. It slows down, it breathes, it waits, and in that space it chooses. That is where power lives, not in the noise, but in the stillness between. Clarity gives you the ability to respond with intention. It's the difference between being dragged by life and walking through it. It allows you to say, I don't need to engage with every insult. I don't need to solve every problem right now. I don't need to have an opinion on everything. Clarity is what allows you to walk into chaos and still walk straight. Let's take a real-world example. Someone speaks to you with disrespect. Your body tightens. Your ego rises. Your mind prepares for war. But the Stoic pauses and asks, is this about me, or is this about them? Often, when you look deeper, you'll see that people's behavior says more about their inner world than it does about you. And once you see that, you don't take it personally. You don't carry their words into your heart. You don't let a single moment ruin your peace, because clarity teaches you not every battle is yours to fight. Not every fire needs your fuel. And let's be clear, clarity isn't passivity. It doesn't mean you become numb or indifferent. It means you become intentional. Sometimes clarity tells you to speak up with strength and precision. Sometimes it tells you to walk away with grace and finality. Sometimes it tells you to sit still with discomfort and patience. But whatever you do it from a place of centeredness, not chaos. This is what separates the Stoic from the reactive mind. He doesn't jump to conclusions. He questions his own assumptions. He doesn't follow every emotion. He interrogates them. He doesn't believe every thought. He examines them. He knows that feeling something doesn't automatically make it true. So he filters. He filters the day. He filters the drama. He filters the noise. Not to escape reality, but to engage with it more skillfully. Because here's the hard truth. Most of the chaos in your life isn't caused by life itself. It's caused by how you interpret life, by the meaning you assign, the stories you tell, the energy you give. So what would your life look like if you started filtering instead of absorbing? If you began asking, is this mine to carry? Is this truly worth my reaction? Is this thought even accurate? What if you started practicing this filter every day, not as a shield, but as a compass? Because the Stoic mind doesn't seek to avoid the storm. It seeks to navigate it. And that navigation is only possible through clarity. Clarity is what allows you to say, this moment is uncomfortable, but it's not a crisis. It lets you hold pain without letting pain hold you. It lets you walk through uncertainty without being consumed by fear. It lets you love without needing to possess, listen without needing to reply, be hurt without needing to retaliate. It transforms your presence. People feel the difference in you. More importantly, you feel the difference in yourself. Because when you live with clarity, you don't need to control every moment. You just need to understand it. And when you understand it, you can meet it with presence, with purpose, with peace. So ask yourself, how much of my stress is coming from life? And how much is coming from the story I'm telling myself about life? What have I been absorbing that I should have filtered? What am I reacting to that doesn't deserve my energy? And if you want to start regaining control, not over the world, but over your inner life, start here. Filter first, then respond. Because when you train your mind to see clearly, the chaos outside loses its power over the peace inside. There's a strength most people never speak about because it looks like surrender. In a world that glorifies force, domination, and relentless pursuit, the idea of letting go, of yielding, seems like giving up. We're taught that real power means pushing through, holding on, never backing down. But the Stoics saw something deeper. They saw that true power often comes not from resistance, but from alignment, from recognizing what is real and moving with it, not against it. Surrender, in the Stoic sense, is not passive, it's not lazy, it's not defeat, it's the most courageous act of clarity. It's standing in front of what you cannot change and saying, I see you. I won't fight what already is. I'll meet it. I'll move with it. That's not weakness. That's wisdom under pressure. Think of it like this: when you're caught in a powerful current while swimming, thrashing around doesn't save you, it drowns you. But if you float, if you surrender not with panic, but with presence, you conserve your strength, you breathe. And from there, you gain the clarity to navigate. You move with the water, not against it. Life works the same way. You can fight every change, every loss, every failure, or you can surrender to the moment and reclaim your power to respond well. Seneca wrote, Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. And if you've ever felt like life was dragging you, it's likely because you've been resisting what was already real. You wanted something to stay that was already gone. You kept reaching for something that no longer wanted to be held. You kept rewriting a story that had already ended. But here's the invitation. Stop swimming upstream. Stop pretending you can change the unchangeable. Stop exhausting yourself in a war that can't be won because the enemy doesn't exist. There's only reality, and reality does not ask for your permission. It asks for your participation. So, what does it mean to surrender in practice? It means accepting the loss that's already happened instead of reliving it every day. It means allowing someone to go instead of holding on to the version of them you wish they still were. It means releasing the plan you poured your heart into when life took it in a different direction. It means saying, "This hurts. I didn't ask for this, but it's here. So now I choose how I move forward." Surrender is not a collapse. It's a conscious release, a grounded decision to let go of what is weighing you down. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it's no longer serving you. And yes, this takes more courage than most people realize, because it requires trust. Not blind faith, but deep, reasoned trust. Trust in your ability to adapt. Trust in the rhythm of life, even when it breaks your heart. Trust that fighting the inevitable only makes you tired, and that letting go doesn't make you powerless, it makes you free. This mindset applies not just to the big, painful moments, but to the daily irritations and expectations we carry like invisible weights. The delayed flight, the traffic jam, the canceled meeting, the long line, the closed door. Every one of those moments is a training ground. Every one of them gives you a choice: resist and suffer, or surrender and breathe. And slowly, this practice builds something rare in you, a kind of quiet strength, a calm that doesn't flinch, a grace that doesn't need applause, because you're no longer chasing control. You're living from alignment. You're no longer gripping so tightly that your hands bleed. You've opened your palms. You've released what isn't yours. You've chosen to meet life not as an enemy, but as a partner. And here's the paradox. The more you surrender, the stronger you feel, because you're no longer wasting energy on things that can't be changed. You're no longer drained by the need to fix everything. You're no longer afraid to feel, because even when the emotion is heavy, you trust yourself to carry it and still move forward. This is what true resilience looks like. Not just enduring the storm, but knowing when to put down the umbrella and walk with it. It means saying, "Yes, this happened. Yes, it hurts. But no, I will not resist it anymore. I will meet this moment fully, honestly, and from here I will rise." So if there's something you've been resisting, a truth you keep avoiding, a change you keep postponing, a story you keep rewriting, ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped fighting this, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom? What would happen if you finally trusted that surrender isn't giving up, it's growing up? And what if your strength was never about how tightly you could hold on, but how gracefully you could let go? Because in a world that tells you to fight everything, the person who can surrender with intention stands out, not as broken, but as whole. Every moment of your life offers you a choice, of fork in the road. One path is quick, reactive, emotional. The other is slower, intentional, grounded. The first path is reaction. The second is response. And though they may seem similar, the difference between them is everything. Reaction is what happens when you give your emotions the driver's seat. It's fast, it's loud, it feels powerful in the moment, but often leaves damage in its wake. Response is what happens when you pause, when you breathe, when you allow awareness to catch up with emotion before you act. And while response may feel quiet at first, it builds something lasting: character, dignity, peace. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that between stimulus and action lies a sacred space, a moment of choice. And in that moment, your freedom lives. You may not be able to control what happens to you, but you can always choose what happens through you. That's what self-mastery is. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about directing them. It's about leading yourself, even when every instinct tells you to lash out, to defend, to explode. Let's take a familiar situation. You're cut off in traffic. Your heart rate spikes. Your anger rises. The immediate reaction is to yell, honk, stew in frustration. And maybe you do that, and then carry that tension with you for the rest of the day. Now imagine you took a breath instead. You paused and asked, is this moment worth my peace? Will it matter tomorrow? You remember it's not personal. The other driver may be distracted, in pain, careless, but their behavior is about them, not you. You keep driving, calm, clear, free. That small decision, that pause, that's the difference between living in reaction and living in response. And this practice applies far beyond traffic or everyday annoyances. It touches how you deal with betrayal, with criticism, with disappointment, even with success. When someone misunderstands you, do you react defensively? Or do you listen with openness? When you're hurt, do you lash out? Or do you create space for reflection before you speak? When your expectations are shattered, do you spiral into blame? Or do you ground yourself in reality? These aren't just emotional habits. They are the architecture of your character. And here's what's powerful. Anyone can react, but it takes true inner strength to respond, to feel the wave rise and not let it carry you. To feel the fire spark and not let it burn everything down. That's composure. That's grace under pressure. And it's rare. Most people have never learned how to pause, how to question their thoughts, how to sit with discomfort instead of reacting to it. But the Stoic trains for this daily. It's not glamorous. There are no trophies. No one applauds you for the insult you didn't return, or the argument you chose not to have, or the ego you refused to feed. But those are the moments that shape your life. Those are the silent victories that make you unshakable. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, wrote constantly about this. He reminded himself daily, don't be carried away by emotion. Let reason guide you. Even with armies at his command, he knew the most important battle was always internal. Because true leadership starts with self. So how do you develop this strength? You practice awareness. You notice the rise in your body, the tension, the heat, the impulse. You pause. You ask, is this a reaction or a response? Is this my highest self speaking or my wounded self? Will this action bring me peace or just momentary release? And over time, your nervous system begins to rewire. You start to associate conflict not with combat, but with curiosity. You stop needing to be right all the time and start aiming to be wise. You still feel emotion. You're still human, but you're no longer enslaved by it. You listen to your anger, but you don't obey it. You acknowledge your sadness, but you don't drown in it. You welcome your fear, but you walk forward anyway. This is what it means to respond instead of react. And as this practice deepens, something begins to shift, not just in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. You become proud of the restraint you once thought was weakness. You become grounded in your silence. You become confident in your ability to carry emotion without unleashing it on others. And the people around you feel it. They trust your presence. They respect your energy. They come to rely on your steadiness, not because you're perfect, but because you're centered, because you've chosen to live not by impulse but by intention. So today, the next time life presses your buttons, do this. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, do I want to add to the noise or bring clarity? Because every moment is a chance to train this muscle. Every challenge is an invitation to lead yourself. And every time you choose response over reaction, you step more fully into the person you were meant to be. True control isn't about power over others. It's not about domination, influence, or being the loudest voice in the room. It's not about getting people to agree with you, obey you, or even understand you. True control, real, lasting, grounded control is self-control. It's the quiet mastery of your impulses, the invisible strength that shows up when no one is watching. It's the choice to hold your tongue when anger surges, the discipline to resist what feels good in the moment but hurts in the long run, the commitment to integrity even when it costs you. And in a world obsessed with performance, self-control is often overlooked. Why? Because it doesn't get applause. There are no headlines for staying calm, no awards for not reacting, no spotlight for walking away from a pointless argument. But these are the moments that define who you are. Epictetus said it best, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Self-control isn't about becoming robotic. It's not coldness. It's not suppressing emotion. It's not pretending you don't care. It's about alignment. It's about living in harmony with your highest values instead of being pulled around by every emotion, every craving, every impulse that arises. And here's the reality. This kind of control doesn't happen overnight. It's not a gift. It's a practice. It's earned. You build it slowly, day by day, choice by choice. Every time you say no to what weakens you and yes to what strengthens you, you are training your character. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone when you're trying to focus, discipline grows. Every time you choose to listen rather than interrupt, patience grows. Every time you sit with discomfort instead of numbing it, resilience grows. This is how freedom is formed. Not freedom from rules, but freedom from chaos. Because without self-control, you're a slave, not to other people but to yourself, to your urges, to your fears, to your need to always be right, liked, heard, validated. And that kind of slavery is invisible. It's internal, but it quietly erodes your power from the inside out. So how do you begin to reclaim it? You start with awareness. When you feel triggered, ask, what am I about to give my power to? When you feel overwhelmed by desire, ask, is this pleasure or is this escape? When you feel the urge to speak, to prove, to retaliate, ask, is this necessary or is this ego? These small check-ins might seem insignificant, but they're everything. They create the space you need to make a different choice, a conscious choice, and over time, these micro decisions become macro transformations. You stop reaching for the comfort of chaos. You stop needing to react. You stop sabotaging yourself for short-term relief. Instead, you build an internal foundation, a steadiness, a self-trust. Because that's what self-control really gives you: trust in yourself. Trust that you won't betray your values when things get hard. Trust that you won't fall apart the moment discomfort appears. Trust that when life gets loud, you can still hear your own voice. And this trust, this inner steadiness, it shows up in the small, ordinary things. Waking up when you said you would, finishing the task you wanted to quit, holding back in an argument when you know nothing good will come from pressing further, choosing silence over drama. Choosing a walk over a scroll, choosing to rest when you're tired, not when you're burnt out. These are not dramatic gestures. They won't be trending on social media, but they are the quiet roots of power. They build the kind of life that doesn't collapse under pressure. They give you the kind of presence that can hold chaos without becoming it. Because once you've learned how to govern yourself, you don't need to govern others. You don't need to control the narrative. You don't need to win every interaction. You don't need to prove your worth. You simply embody it. And that embodiment is what sets you free. You begin to realize, I don't need the world to behave in order to be at peace. I only need to behave in alignment with my values. You don't need to be perfect. You'll slip. You'll react. You'll fall into old habits. But you'll also recover faster, learn quicker, lead yourself more wisely, because you'll have a compass now not based on feelings or circumstances, but based on choice. So ask yourself today, where in my life am I still being run by impulse? What habits are controlling me instead of serving me? What small decisions could I make to realign with the person I want to become? And remember this, you don't need to control the noise of the world. When you've found the volume knob inside yourself, that's where the battle is. That's where the victory is. Not because the world gets easier, but because you get stronger. The world will always be unpredictable. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. You will face delays, rejections, heartbreaks, and losses you never saw coming. Life will test your patience, your strength, your values over and over again. But there is one truth that remains steady through it all. You are not here to control the chaos. You are here to master yourself within it. That's the essence of Stoicism. Not the promise of a perfect life, but the pursuit of a powerful mind. A mind that knows what to hold on to and what to let go. A mind that doesn't waste its energy on noise, blame, or fantasy, but uses it to respond wisely to reality. You see, many people spend their entire lives chasing peace by trying to make the world calm down. They believe if they can just fix everyone else, if they can predict every outcome, prevent every mistake, and secure every situation, then finally they'll feel safe. But that's not peace. That's an illusion, a moving target, a trap, because the world will never stop moving. People will always be people. Circumstances will always change. The only peace that lasts is the one you build within. It's not about controlling the future. It's about controlling your next breath, your next thought, your next action. That's where your power lies, not in managing the storm, but in becoming someone who doesn't drown in it. And the great paradox is this: the more you master yourself, the less the world can shake you. Not because you don't feel, not because you don't care, but because you are no longer at the mercy of things that were never yours to command. You've learned to meet pain with presence. You've learned to meet change with flexibility. You've learned to meet uncertainty with focus. You've trained your mind to stop reacting and start reflecting, to pause instead of panic, to think instead of spiral. That's what Stoic training gives you, not a shield from the world, but a foundation within it. And when you truly start living from that foundation, everything changes. You stop needing everyone to understand you. You stop chasing closure. You stop explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, breathe differently, not because you're above anyone, but because you've gone within. You've stopped outsourcing your peace to the unpredictable. You've stopped giving your power to people who haven't earned it. You've stopped bargaining with life and started building with it. And make no mistake, this isn't about perfection. It's not about getting it right every time. It's about practicing, about showing up, about recommitting. Every single day. Because mastery isn't a destination, it's a lifestyle. It's how you wake up, how you speak, how you work, how you rest, how you love, how you let go. So if today feels heavy, if you're caught in a storm, or stuck in a cycle, or feeling like the world is spinning faster than you can handle, return to this. You are not here to control everything. You are here to master how you meet it. And that starts right now. Right now, you can choose to breathe instead of break. You can choose to pause instead of panic. You can choose to act instead of react. You can choose to reclaim your energy from every useless worry, from every imaginary scenario. from every unworthy distraction and bring it back to where it belongs, with you. This is the art of living intentionally. This is what it means to become your own anchor. Because storms will come, people will change, plans will fall through. But if you're rooted in yourself and your values, in your discipline, in your clarity, then nothing can truly throw you off course. You become the calm in the chaos, the stillness in the noise, the clarity in the confusion. And that kind of presence, that kind of inner power, it's rare. But it's available to anyone, to you. So carry this reminder with you. You don't need to control everything around you to feel in control. You just need to control the one thing you were always meant to yourself. If there's one idea to take with you, one truth to carve into your mind, it's this: your peace is not waiting for life to calm down. Your peace is waiting for you to stop fighting what was never yours to control. Because you were never meant to hold the whole world together. You were never meant to carry every burden, fix every problem, please every person, or predict every outcome. And yet that's how most of us live. Tense, tired, torn between what we want and what life gives us. Exhausted not from action, but from mental resistance. And here's the quiet revolution Stoicism offers. You don't need to control the future to walk into it with strength. You just need to control your mind, your breath, your next step. This is how you create real transformation, not by waiting for the world to change, but by becoming someone who no longer needs the world to change in order to feel whole. Because wholeness is not a gift you find. It's a state you return to every time you choose discipline over distraction. Every time you say, "This isn't mine to control." Every time you turn your energy away from what breaks you and back toward what builds you. So how do you live this? How do you keep this mindset not just for a day or a week, but for a lifetime? You practice relentlessly, gently, repeatedly. You treat your mind like a garden. You pull the weeds, negative thoughts, irrational fears, impulsive judgments, and you water the seeds: stillness, presence, gratitude, reason. You show up to yourself every morning and ask, what do I control today? What am I carrying that isn't mine? What can I let go of, not out of weakness, because my peace is worth more? You don't aim to be unbreakable, you aim to be unshaken. There's a difference. Unbreakable implies hardness, resistance, armor. But unshaken, that's presence. That's grace. That's strength rooted in clarity. You don't collapse every time someone misunderstands you. You don't spiral every time your plans fall apart. You don't need to rush into fixing what's broken because you've learned to sit with discomfort. Listen to it, learn from it. You've stopped worshiping control, and in its place you've cultivated command. Command of your choices, command of your energy, command of your attention. Command of yourself. And from that command, you begin to live a different kind of life. One not ruled by reaction, but guided by intention. One where your mood isn't dictated by someone else's tone. Where your worth isn't defined by someone else's validation. Where your focus isn't hijacked by every notification, every drama, every random emotion that passes through. You live like a Stoic not because you don't feel, but because you do, and you know how to respond. You begin to understand. Control was never the goal. Clarity was not a perfect outcome, a purposeful presence. And once you learn to live like this, you become a force. Not in the loud, flashy way the world often rewards, but in the quiet, magnetic way that creates trust, that holds space, that moves with confidence, that can walk through storms and still walk straight. Because here's the secret: the world doesn't need more control. It needs more people who are in command of themselves. People who can stay calm without needing to dominate. People who can speak with kindness without needing to win. People who can set boundaries without needing to punish. people who can let go without losing themselves, and you can be that person. You've already begun, because you're here, now, thinking, reflecting, growing, choosing to look inward rather than always pointing outward. You're not waiting for the world to give you peace. You're building the kind of mind that brings peace to the world. So carry this practice with you. Carry this mindset like armor, not to shield you from life, but to help you walk through it with wisdom. And if this message stirred something in you, if it helped you breathe a little deeper, stand a little taller, think a little clearer, don't just listen to it, live it, let it echo through your decisions. Let it shape your conversations. Let it whisper to you when life gets loud, and when in doubt, return to this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius Epictetus, that's the Stoic's path. Not to control the storm, but to become the kind of person who doesn't fear it. Let go. Reclaim your energy. Respond with intention. And above all, master yourself. Sweet dreams.